Hi everyone, I'm attorney Ryan Locke. I represent people who have been injured and people who have been unfairly convicted from my office in Atlanta, Georgia. And today, I want to talk about pre-existing conditions in a car wreck case. So, oftentimes, when we represent someone in a car wreck, they may have a pre-existing condition. What is a pre-existing condition? It's simply your medical history. And everyone has injuries or illnesses or things that have happened to them at some point in their past. A lot of the times, it doesn't affect the case at all. If I broke my arm as a kid and then I'm in a car wreck 30 years later, obviously my broken arm doesn't really affect anything in the case, particularly if I've been healed and could use it perfectly for those 30 years. Occasionally, someone has a pre-existing condition and then they aggravate that condition from the injury that occurs in the wreck. So, for example, let's say that I have a work injury and I hurt my back. And I get workers' compensation treatment, and my back improves some, but not fully. And so I eventually need a fusion surgery, and then I still have pain, but I can manage the pain. And then I'm in a car wreck. Well, because and in the car wreck I injure my back. Because I injured my back before does not mean that I don't deserve justice for this car wreck. Instead, it's my job as the lawyer to figure out, how did the car wreck make your life worse and aggravate the pre-existing injury? And we do that in a couple of ways. One way is obviously by talking to the client and figuring out what were the symptoms before the car wreck and after the car wreck. So in this example, we could say, look, I had a back fusion, but the pain was managed. And let's look at objective measures. I only had to take Advil maybe once a week when the pain was bad. I could sleep well 6 nights out of 7. I wore I would wear a back brace, maybe 2 or 3 times a month when it got, when the pain was particularly bad. But otherwise, the pain was pretty well controlled, and I was able to do most activities. Then after the wreck, maybe it's, hey, I'm taking Advil every day because it hurts every day. I'm constantly wearing my back brace. There are many more activities that I can't do. Let's say before, I was able to go to the store and shop for groceries with no problem, but now after the wreck, I have difficulty standing or walking for more than 10 or 15 minutes. So you can see that there's a real contrast between how I was before the wreck and how I was after the wreck, even though there was a pre-existing back condition. And there's a specific rule that talks about this, a doctrine of law called the eggshell plaintiff rule, which essentially means that no matter what the medical nature, no matter what medical conditions the plaintiff has, the negligent defendant must pay for all of the harms and losses that they cause. So for me, even though I'm hurt worse because I have this pre-existing back condition, that negligent defendant still has to pay for all those harms and losses because he caused them by negligently running into me with his car. Once we know kind of what the difference is before the wreck and after the wreck with the pre-existing injury, we then look on ways to substantiate it. So we'll look at medical records. Sometimes we have medical records from before the wreck that show things were in a good place, and then obviously the medical records after the wreck will document the extent of the injuries. We can also find witnesses, family, friends, colleagues, who can talk about what happened, how our client was before the wreck, how our client was after the wreck, and the changes. And usually all that evidence together paints a very vivid picture of a pre-existing injury that was under control, and then the wreck happened, and then that injury was aggravated and caused more symptoms and pain and essentially made the client's life worse, and the defendant has to pay for that. I hope you enjoyed this video. I have other videos about personal injury topics if you want to check them out here on my YouTube page. Please like and subscribe. If there's any specific stuff you want me to talk about, leave me a comment, shoot me an email. It's in the comments below. Thanks, and I'll see you soon.